Go through some housekeeping for those in the audience. If there is an alarm activation, there's an emergency exit at the back of the room where you came in, and when the alarm rings, this exit to my right, to your left, will also be usable. Elevators will not be usable, so if you need assistance, wait for first responders. We offer voluntary remote participation. If any member of the planning board participates remotely, all votes shall be by roll call. To attend the meeting remotely, you visit www.zoom.us. You enter a meeting ID of 754-663-912, or you may phone in for audio only. Call 646-558-8656. Same meeting ID, 754-663-912. If you have any problems with getting into the remote, please call 603-845-5585. If you're on the phone and you want to be recognized, hit *9 to raise your hand, and once recognized, hit *6 to unmute yourself so you can participate. I will now introduce the members and staff who are present tonight. To my far right is Mr. Mousy, our alternate. Ms. Robideau, our planning director.
Good evening.
Ms. Carvalho, you're the clerk, right? Yeah, okay. It was Caroline the other day. You keep confusing me. Mr. Chase, who is sitting tonight as
Town Council.
Town Council Liaison, voted in last night. Congratulations. Member, Mr. Healy.
Good evening.
Vice Chair, Mr. O'Connor.
Mr. Chair, I also want to say that I acknowledge that it appears that we do have a quorum tonight.
Okay, I was going to get to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
I apologize.
To my far left, Mr. Preventure, who is our manager of the Community Access Cable TV, DerryCAM. We have our town engineer, Mr. LaRue.
Good evening.
We have our secretary, Mr. Malaby.
Hello.
And I'm Dave Nelson, the chair. Oh, and recently arrived is our second alternate, Ms. Lavoy. Mr. Feinauer is absent. Who else is absent that we can seat someone for?
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Myers. So I would ask both alternates to be seated for Mr. Feinauer and Mr. Myers. First item on our agenda tonight is escrow. We have item number 25-03 for Ashley Development LLC, and we have a memo in our packet.
Okay. So this is a...
All right, hold on.
Oh,
We did forget the pledge.
yes, we did.
Which is normally what I do immediately after
Yes.
opening the meeting. So let me back up and start that.
Please,
I
thank you.
appreciate that, thank you. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that reminder. Once again, matter of escrow, memo number 25-03, Ashley Development LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a request to renew the existing letter of credit drawn on Enterprise Bank in the amount of $320,160. The new expiration date would be February 24 of 26.
Okay. And this is a first renewal?
For letters of credit, they renew either annually or automatic renewals.
Oh, okay, this is, so the annual?
Annual renewal.
All right. Any questions on this? Not, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, since I am a direct abutter, even though I agree with this here, I'm going to follow my procedures of abstaining related to this parcel.
Mr. Healy, would you make a motion for us, please?
I would move to renew the letter of credit number 7000437-2 drawn on Enterprise Bank in the amount of $320,160 for the above noted project. The expiration date shall be February 24th, 2026.
Second.
Moved by Healy, seconded by Malaby. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Abstaining.
Abstain. Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Ms. Lavoy?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. First, the regular meeting of March 5th, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review that? Are there any errors or omissions?
Mr. Chair, seeing nobody rising up to it, I move to approve the
Second.
March 5th.
All right, so moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby to approve the March 5th minutes. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy?
Yes.
Ms. Lavoy?
I'll abstain, I wasn't here.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And on the minutes of the visioning session, number 3, which took place on February 24th, has everyone had a chance to review those? Any errors or omissions?
Mr. Chair, I see no coming forward. I wasn't recorded on there, but I did watch it on the virtual, which was very good, so I would move to accept.
Mr. Chair, real quick, just a quick Scrivener's error.
Thank you.
Just at the top, yeah. It just needs to be changed to February 24th instead of the 10th. But other than that, I second the motion.
Okay, moved by O'Connor, seconded by Maloney to approve as amended. Any further discussion? All aboard, Mr. Chase,
I will abstain. I was not there.
Mr. Healy,
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor,
Yes.
Mr. Mousy,
Yes.
Ms. Lavoy,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Malaby,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes.
Mr. Chair, for one moment, if we could correct the motion for the approval of minutes, we didn't meet on March 5th.
Oh,
So-
really?
Yeah, so it would be the minutes of February 19th.
Okay.
Apologize for that on
So
the
noted that
agenda.
the first
Yeah.
approval was not of March 5th meeting. Yeah, you're right, we didn't meet that night. It was February 19th?
Yes.
So noted, thank you. Correspondence.
I don't believe there is any, no.
We have no correspondence this evening.
A moment to shine.
Other business. First item is a second extension request for parcel ID 18001 and 18001-001, Heather M. Davis and Paul T. and Michelle Carr.
Thank you. For this one, the properties are located at 112 and 110 North Shore Road down near Island Pond. It was a two-lot subdivision and a lot line adjustment between two properties. This was approved back originally in March of 2024. The board did grant a 6-month extension in August of last year. The two approvals include the addition of a shared driveway, which required the drafting and recording of a common access and maintenance agreement. Escrow is also required for the project. The applicant's been working on the agreement in the escrow and has asked for an additional 6 months to complete those tasks. The agreement has been drafted and is scheduled to be recorded with the plat. So it's really just trying to get the escrow in place for the project.
Okay, any questions on this? Not, what is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chair, then, I will move to approve an additional 6-month extension for the two-lot subdivision and lot line adjustment approved by the board on March 6, 2024 for Heather Davis, PID 18001, 112 North Shore Road, and Michelle and Paul Carr, PID 18001-001, 110 North Shore Road. This is the second extension request. The new expiration date will be September 6, 2025.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Malaby. I will poll the board. Mr. Chase?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mr. O'Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Mousy? Ms.
Yes.
Lavoy?
Yes.
Mr. Malaby?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Next item on our agenda, we have a citizen rezoning request. There's a packet that describes the request, and there's also a map attached, and so I'll ask Ms. Roboto to review that for us, and I understand that the citizen who's making the request is here, so we can have him make a little presentation as well.
Okay, thank you. So in my staff report, you have kind of in the introduction and background, there's just kind of a process outline for the newer members on how we handle these. We generally take the requests in, put it under other business for board review, so that the board can discuss and decide how they want to move forward. So they can either we can either send the request to a zoning committee to look into it further or schedule a workshop. When we schedule workshops, we'll send letters to the petitioner and to the abutters advising of the date of the workshop if it's less than 100 people. And then hold the workshop, draft the language, and then move through the public hearing process. The request came in from Mr. Moran with the change of business at 111 West Broadway from Derry Pizza to Friendly Reds. The character of the neighborhood's changing a bit. And as a result, Mr. Moran has asked the planning board to consider rezoning in this neighborhood to accommodate some sort of mixed use or limited commercial use heading further back from Broadway, so that existing and future residents would have an opportunity for some form of commercial use from their homes that's just a little bit, not too broad, but a little bit more expansive than what's permitted by a home occupation. If the board decides to move the discussion forward, perhaps the board could consider expanding the OBD district up the street. But, we'd really need to thoroughly look at unintended consequences because this area is another gateway into Derry. So I would recommend that the board bring this request forward probably to workshop rather than sending it to a zoning committee, but it is of course all at the board's pleasure. On the back of the staff report, you have a map that shows the area. And in this area, you have the properties fronting on Broadway from the town line up to Fordway Extension. On the, let's call it the south side, like Clark Street side, those properties are all OBD, so Office Business District. On the northern side, fronting along Dickey, Linwood, and up to Wyman, those are also Office Business District. Behind that is MHDR2, where permitted is single-family residential and home occupation. Further back on the southern side, over near Aiken Street, you have MHDR, which is medium high density residential, which allows multifamily. So it's kind of an overview of what the zoning looks like in that area. And so I don't know if Mr. Moran wanted to provide any comment.
Mr. Moran, welcome you to come up and give your commentary on the request.
Well, the reason why I'm here.
Please sit down and use the mic and give your name and address for the record so we can put you in the minutes.
All right, my name's Chris Moran. I live at 3 Dickey Street, which is directly across the street from the parking lot of Friendly Reds. And the area over the past couple of years has changed quite a bit due to Friendly Reds. It's much busier. They have extended hours compared to what was there before. And it's more of a bar atmosphere compared to a family restaurant. So there's a lot of commotion that was never there before. I've been at that location for 23 years. So I've seen it change. And dealing with the commotion, I would just like, to be able to do something else with my property, I got vehicles parking on my lawn, delivery trucks driving on my lawn, driving into my trees, taking branches down. It's a havoc, and I'd like to see something change.
And so by the character, you mean the level of patrons, number
Yes.
of guests per
Yes.
unit time has changed?
Yes, it's very busy constantly, and they're open for breakfast on Saturdays and Sundays, so that's extended hours on the weekends, and there's zero privacy over there now.
But it's still a restaurant use, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and the traffic up and down that road is significantly more, and just the speed up and down that road has significantly risen. It's, something's gonna happen out there. There's gonna be an accident, people pulling in, whipping in and out of the parking lot. It's like a free-for-all over there.
Okay, I mean, I think we need to separate the traffic
We do.
enforcement issues from the use issues,
Yes.
because if we do make some sort of change to a mixed use, there will be eventually potentially more businesses and even more traffic, so it won't really solve that.
Mr. Chair, what's going to make this even a little bit more difficult, I hate to throw this in, that part of the problem is the land that he's talking about that's becoming an issue to him is not in our purview. Part of, over half of that building, that's the restaurant, is in London.
Londonderry, yeah.
And the property, and I did some research on his property here in that whole Dickey Street, where it narrows down into angular types of property. And in addition to that, whether it's legal or not, there are additional businesses. So the only 3 properties is his, 2 other properties that are either auto sales, or there's another, not auto sales, but there's another type of repair.
Repair shop,
Repair.
correct.
And then the rest of it is all Londonderry, and then sliced with part of Londonderry with Linwood that goes up there. So it's a little bit more complicated with that. So I
Yeah,
don't
because
know if
you're right, we obviously can't change zoning in Londonderry, and for the lots that have split between the 2 towns,
Yes.
I'm a little concerned about trying to change the zone of just part of the lot that we have jurisdiction over. So yes, that will be a consideration in terms of how much we could do. Any other questions?
But I would
comments?
think that he would be able to approach and help me, Liz, if I'm wrong, that maybe code enforcement.
Yeah, we
That
are,
could-
there's been extensive discussion with code enforcement. Code enforcement is working with Friendly Reds to bring them into compliance. So, but the matter before the board tonight is the request to perhaps do some rezoning over on that side of the road. So,
Yeah, so let's focus on the rezoning. From this colored map, it appears that there are 2 parcels on the eastern side of Dickey Street that are entirely within the town of Derry. So we could certainly consider changing the zoning for those 2 parcels. Beyond that, the ones that are partial in Londonderry, I think we need to perhaps think about what happens there, whether we try to work with our compatriots on the other side of the town line, or what we do. But, so how many of those parcels are you requesting to rezone?
My parcel is just Derry. I'm the last one that's on Dickey Street that's fully in Derry.
And you have
Okay.
3 Dickey.
I'm 3, yes.
Yep.
And what about your neighbor on your backside? Your back
The
lot?
neighbor on my backside is, he used to have a mixed use on there at one point in time. I'm not sure if that's still, if that's still carried through or not.
'Cause we'd probably want to talk about that, because we like to have the zones have nice boundaries and not do anything that could even be considered spot zoning.
Yeah.
And so if we were to make a change, it might make sense to maybe consider those 2 parcels together, and then proceed from there.
yep. And perhaps like that other block between, the other MHDR2 between Linwood and Wyman Street, because those are all in Derry.
But when we have to also show, Mr. Chair, if I was from right, or wrong, is that as we move up into that apex area to see, which we don't see on the color chart that we have here, is what conflict we may be going up against on the parallel Londonderry portion of it.
Right, and I can speak with Mrs. Karen over in Londonderry, and, you know, we can have a discussion about that and kind of look at what Londonderry allows for uses there and see what's compatible and similar.
Yeah, it might be wise for someone to reach out to those other 2 parcels and include them in any future discussions.
Okay.
Mr. Chase?
So, Friendly Reds isn't on the thing, but the building itself is in Derry. It's the parking lot that's in Londonderry.
Correct.
But the next property up is actually a used car lot, which is wholly in Londonderry. To the west of that, it just went before Londonderry's planning last week. That is going to be an overflow lot for the auto auction by exit 4 down on Action Way,
Where the realty was torn down?
where the realty was torn down.
Okay.
He went before the planning board to make that an overflow lot, so that's commercial. That area in Londonderry is all commercial too.
Okay.
So there are already several mixed uses, as Mr. Miller,
Moran.
had said already there. You can see it in the picture right behind Friendly Reds. That's a used car lot there. There are other small businesses up in that street, and as I said, that's all commercial too in Londonderry.
So it would probably make sense for us to understand what's allowed in Londonderry's Commercial 2 district, so we
Yeah.
can match it up with
Yep.
what district we might consider.
Yeah, until you get to Hillside Ave, and then once you cross Hillside Ave on the north, opposite Dickey Street is agricultural. That's the old vineyards that was
Yes.
there. He
That's
actually wanted
changing
to-
as well.
Pardon?
That's changing as well.
Yes, but other than just that vineyards, everything heading west on Hillside is all commercial in Londonderry also.
Yes.
So that's a commercial district in Londonderry.
Absolutely.
Okay. Further comments, questions?
I just have a clarifying question, Mr. Chair. So is, on our colored map, is 3 Dickey parcel 26056?
Well, you have good eyes, because I can't read the red against the orange, but
Yes.
Okay.
Just another thing, the dumpsters over there, they get emptied at like anywhere from 3:30 to 2:30 to 4:30 in the morning. Bread delivery, which I had to go out there and speak with him myself at 3:30 in the morning because he constantly waking me up every night with banging around in this truck. And I literally had to go out there and speak with him myself.
If you don't mind,
It's-
Mr. Chair, then you need to get to notify both enforcement here and also in Londonderry too? If you've been-
I haven't been in contact with
'cause
Derry.
Like I say, with
I mean,
with
Londonderry, I'm
split
sorry.
property and so forth, so.
yeah, so let's try to focus on use issues. So I'm completely sympathetic to enforcement and issues, but let's not cloud the issue. Let's figure out, if we're going to have a workshop, what we need to know, and then figure out if we want to schedule one. Mr. Healy?
Yeah, so I just had a question for the planning director. I see in the letter to us, the email to us, it said that other residents on the street would like the board to consider this. Do other members on the street, other residents reach out to you on the street, or?
That was through Mr. Moran.
Yeah.
He had stated that he had spoken to other residents who were in favor of him asking.
We should probably contact them and get that in writing to the board so that we're sure that they're interested in being included in whatever changes we're considering.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure, because it seems like the side that he is on is more residential, and then the other side of the street is where it gets to Londonderry and it's commercial. And, I mean, I think it's we have it zoned correctly as is. So if there's, I'd say, more residents on the street that are having issues, I think that would be helpful. I've driven up that street. I mean, once you get past, Reds, it's all houses until then you get to the end of the street. So I'd like to hear from other residents on the street if it's really a concern, if they want it zoned differently.
Okay, so that being said, what I can do is I can work with you to get those names, and we can reach out to them, bring that information back to the board at our next meeting, so the first meeting in April, and then maybe on that date, the board can decide if they want to move forward to a workshop, what area we're going to be potentially looking at, so that we can provide the proper notice for the workshop. Would that be acceptable?
I think that would be the right way to go, yeah.
Okay.
So heading up Dickey Street as you were speaking, if you head up Dickey Street just past mine, there's a 3-family, and then just past the 3-family, there's a garage. It's an automobile workshop. And then beyond that is a 3-family. Beyond that is a 3-family. And then there's the last house on the corner, which all those are in Londonderry.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to get some more info from other residents in that area. It was, to me, I mean, it was a restaurant prior and it's a restaurant now. I don't see a big change in the area. Some of the issues that you had mentioned with cars parking on your property, those can be dealt with some other committees through our town, like highway safety, if they're on your property, if they're damaging your property and things. But it was a restaurant before and it's a restaurant now. So I think we need a little more info, and the workshop would probably be best for that.
So I'll move forward with that, and I'll bring you the information back at the next meeting.
Anything
Okay.
else on this?
Okay.
All right, so thank you
All
very
right.
much. We
Thank
will
you.
take
Thank-
this under
Thank
advisement.
you.
Next item on the agenda is a conceptual discussion for parcel ID 22012-0030001, 3 Poor Farm Road, Kali Construction LLC, housing for older adults.
Okay. A little bit extensive staff report for you. So this evening, you have before you a conceptual discussion for a proposed 24-unit development that's intended to be housing for older persons, so that's 55 and older by definition. The development will include an extension of Poor Farm Road so that the applicant can obtain the required amount of frontage on an accepted paved town road. And I'm not going to read every word in this report because you all have it, and the applicant also has a copy. So lot size and density requirements for housings for older persons are in our zoning ordinance. Design standards for these types of developments are dictated by our site plan regulations, which are found in the LDCR. This is the MDR zone. A density bonus of 1.5 units is allowed if the project will utilize municipal water and sewer, which it plans to do. This parcel is 20.62 acres, and 50% of it will be placed in open space per the regulations. Staff has been working conceptually with the development team since July of '23. There's a temporary cul-de-sac easement encumbering 1 Poor Farm Road, and this easement will need to be extinguished and the road extended so the development can have the required frontage. For reference, if you'd like to look at, I think it's sheet 01 in your in the plan packet, and give you an overview of the plan. Strawberry Hill Road is steep, and the access to 1 Poor Farm Road is via a private driveway at this time, which is also very steep. We've had 2 TRC discussions, and review is in process for conservation review is being scheduled in April, and highway safety, they will meet with them tomorrow. The applicant is looking for direction from the board as to the temperature for the various waiver requests that they submitted with the TRC applications, and as they move forward into planning board final review, they would resubmit those to the board. Staff doesn't support the majority of the waivers as they're related to road design and construction, and this will be a town road. As a reminder, they do need to extend the road in order to obtain the legal frontage. Along with the larger plan set, you also have a 1-page conceptual sheet that shows an extension of Poor Farm Road along the frontage to a cul-de-sac, but then the access to the units would come off individual driveways. Concerns and things that have come up during TRC in review of the plan, there's a real concern for the roadway design. As proposed, instead of ending the road and creating a cul-de-sac per our regs for a turnaround, the last TRC submission included a dead end. 3 waivers were submitted to include maximum roadway grade, side slopes, and turnaround design. An additional waiver was added to this packet to not require vertical granite curb. In review of the submitted plan at the last TRC, more than 10 additional waivers were identified. Those were also related to road construction, drainage, geometry standards, and site distance. This area has a lot of ledge. One of the adjacent sites was used for excavation. The lot appears to be able to support the number of units. Staff doesn't have a problem with the proposal itself. It's more the access to the lot and how that is constructed. With the proposed dead end of Poor Farm Road, there's no clear method for the town to manage maintenance or in snow removal, and the road grade is very steep. With the existing road grade, which is about 8%, the ability to tie into the existing grade is a concern to be able to meet our regs. And we do not allow, and there's steep slopes if anyone's been up there. We don't allow retaining walls in the town right-of-way. So management of those side slopes could also be an issue. DPW, and this has been reviewed by the DPW director, does not support the roadway grade, the side slope, or the turnaround design waiver requests. This road is public infrastructure, which needs to be maintained by DPW. The cul-de-sac is a public safety requirement, and DPW trucks have a difficult time on several existing streets where there's no cul-de-sac and no place to turn around or dump snow. Steep slopes become a burden for DPW crews, and the 4-to-1 slope requirement assists the department in managing roadside vegetation without having to invest in specialized equipment. The town would be accepting this as a future Class 5 roadway in order for them to meet that frontage requirement, and a substandard geometric design would be a burden to our ability to support the public service and maintain it. It's suggested this evening that the board hear from the development team. Brad Casperson, the engineer on the project, is here, and Brian, who's also with the development team, is present. This is a concept discussion and therefore non-binding. To effectively move forward with the project, the applicant would appreciate a straw poll of the board with regard to the waiver requests in clear direction as to whether the board would perhaps support a dead-end terminus. And would really be helpful to hear your thoughts on that one-page concept plan. And leave it at that.
So I have a couple of clarifying respect to the level of jurisdiction. This is noticed as a conceptual design review. and if you-
Conceptual review, right?
A conceptual review, and if you look at the state statute, that says, in very loose terms, a design on a napkin, a very high-level conceptual concept. The plan set that has been submitted to us is in fact a design review level of document, has a lot of engineering content to it. Apparently the TRC and Public Works have been responding to the level of detail and giving design critique. However, because it is noticed as a conceptual review, we have to only look at the separate sheet and the sheet numbered 01 in the plan set, which are appropriate to a conceptual review. One of the big differences between conceptual and design review is you don't have to notice butters for conceptual. If we go into design details, we will be conducting a public hearing that was not properly noticed, so let's limit our scope tonight. The other comment is we now have two categories of older adult. We have a 55 and over and a 65 and over. And I think we did that in the last zoning amendment, if I'm not mistaken.
We did. This
And
one's
so-
intended to be 55 and older.
So we just clarify which they're choosing.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to invite the applicant to come forward and try to talk in 10,000-foot terms.
Good evening. My name is Brad Casperson. I'm a professional engineer with Meridian Land Services. I'll be representing this application this evening. I also have the owner's representative here with me, Brian, who can step in to answer any questions that I'm unable to. As Elizabeth had noted, we're trying to get some input from the board on the 4 waiver requests that we're anticipating. What was noted by Elizabeth was the Public Works Department had noted additional waivers that they saw required. However, it's our anticipation to address those, so we won't need to submit them if we are to get to the planning board point. What I figured would be useful is just to go through our rationale of the waiver requests and then the plan submitted. But I figured.
Well, you might want to start with, there's 2 configurations that we've been presented
Yes,
with.
so this one is kind of, in relation to the turnaround waiver, so I prefer if we opened up on the other one, as that relates really to all the other waiver requests.
Well, you can't develop both ways. One has stuff on one side of the street and the other has two sides of the street. So regardless of waiver requests, the layout and the concept is either A or B.
Right, where that plan that you were just looking at, that was essentially an effort to demonstrate that, an alternative design where we provide a cul-de-sac, however, a waiver from accessing a public street would be required. So kind of, giving the cul-de-sac, however, would require relief on the access end, as they're required to be accessed from an internal drive that's separate from the private street or public street.
Okay?
So, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, I know I've got this print here, and then there's a multiple complex up there. And if I understand you correctly, the roundabout is not what you're looking for.
No, that's really just as,
So
if
you
the
need-
board,
You need to pick one of
we,
the other.
this is the one we want to proceed with. That was more of if the board didn't have preference of supporting a hammerhead turnaround, this
You
is,
said the board. What board you talking about? You're in front of the board.
yes, you,
Us.
yes.
And we preferred not to have the,
Just trying to keep options open to present as many
I just
things,
want to know who
really.
you're clarifying, who you're discussing for. Because I don't remember it being on the board member, having seen this
No, this is
before.
all at TRC level.
That's what I thought too, but he kept on talking about the
He,
board.
he's asking the board for feedback on this concept, and there are two concepts. The one that's on the screen now is the one they prefer, but it has a hammerhead
And then we go
dead
the other
end,
way at the
and
end.
we have regulations that say, we don't like that. And so they came up with another alternative, sort of a long, strung out design where everyone is on one side of a street, that does include a cul-de-sac in order to address those technical comments. And so we can certainly give them feedback on which of those two alternatives the board would think is better and more compliant with the regulations. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, go ahead.
So, what is the regulation? Mr. LaRue, do you know off the top of your head that prohibits hammerheads?
The standard for access drives, whether they're private, public, town-owned, they're the same characteristics, same geometry, same type of construction. All have terminus with a cul-de-sac, and especially if it's a town-maintained road, it specifies cul-de-sac.
So in the plan that's on the screen, what's labeled Aiden Avenue, is that going to be a Class 5 public road?
That will
Or-
be private.
Private drive?
Yep.
Okay. And so the roadway that appears below it actually does abruptly end in a dead end. So if we were to resolve the dead end on Poor Farm Road and put some sort of cul-de-sac there, would that meet the requirements in terms of having Aiden Drive a private drive? Is that an option?
Aiden Ave can stay a private drive. It's the part of the extension of Strawberry Hill Road that must be built to town standard for the town to accept it as a Class 5 road.
Sure.
And that they need to meet that minimum frontage, I think it was 125 feet, to actually have a buildable project off of a town-accepted road.
Oh, I see. So because it's an internal driveway, there is a requirement, in addition to that pavement, that the project itself have a minimum frontage on a Class 5 road.
Right.
Okay?
That would be a town-maintained segment of roadway. This would be a private maintained road, but it still would require some waivers from like a cul-de-sac or anything like that. That's not part of an access drive requirement.
So is there any issue with fire apparatus turning around in the current geometry of Aiden Avenue?
Supposedly the fire department has okayed a verbal okay on the turnaround in that segment on Aiden.
Okay. And so in order to make this compliant, we have to make sure that the extension off of Strawberry Hill of Poor Farm Road meets town road construction standards. And it has to extend at least 150 feet along the frontage of the parcel.
Yes.
And it has to have a cul-de-sac at the end?
It has to have a cul-de-sac at the end for us to, it also needs to meet, the slope requirement is 8%, and you have to have a minimum relief section of 4% on either side of the 8% slope. And we also have to include the existing segment of Strawberry Hill Road in the equation, because you can only have a length that's so long, I believe it's 400 feet, for the 8% section, 400 or 500 feet. So I believe it extends quite far down Strawberry Hill Road. So we made that assessment, and we brought that up at the TRC, that has to meet the standard, and they may or may not make that standard. There's obviously various other degrees of like the Blackberry Road, looking up the road, being able to have adequate sight distance from cars coming down that hill. That's a pretty tight curve, and the line of sight could be a difficult thing to achieve, but it hasn't been vetted out yet.
All right, so if you're following this discussion, what we're suggesting is there might be a way to keep the geometry that's on the screen with Aiden Avenue and the units across the private drive access from each other if these other requirements of Poor Farm Road were met in terms of grades for side cuts, grades of the road, and its frontage along the property, and having a cul-de-sac somewhere. So that might potentially be a third option in addition to the two that are before us tonight, just so that you know what we're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm. And I guess, could I clarify my understanding of how some of this, the circumstances played out? So when we talked with fire, we had provided them with turning movements for all the turnarounds depicted. So the hammerhead at the end of Strawberry Hill Road, coming straight in, and then, towards that right unit, turning around there, as well as the far hammerhead. So I guess I just wanted to clarify that, it wasn't just that one that's being pointed to right now, that one hammerhead that we had talked with the town about.
So there's multiple layers to this. There's what the fire department needs in terms of apparatus. There's what DPW needs in terms of road maintenance. And so what you're suggesting is that if you can meet the road gradients and the side cut slopes, that you would propose what we see on the screen and then ask for a waiver to not have a cul-de-sac at the end?
So I guess maybe what I should really get at is, the two things that are necessary for access is the grade and the side slopes. Access to the property is not feasible without those two waivers. So I guess that's, our bigger ask of the board is, for input on that. The end of Strawberry Hill Road is 8%, so inherently a waiver is required. The entirety of Strawberry Hill Road doesn't comply with the current town standards, and I'm sure it predates when they were adopted. So it's more of a situation of the existing constraints, the topography of the existing right-of-way, and how we're going to construct this road, and what's the most reasonable waivers, which we feel are reasonable with all the other design criteria. So I guess that was the, access to the property is probably the biggest thing for this project, because it can't happen without, the access.
So, Mr. Liu, given that some of these roads are long-standing and are already implemented before we had the current road standards, and given the length of the extension, is it a reasonable hardship to allow them to continue similar road gradients?
I think you have to look at it as a total package, not just one item. I listed out at least a dozen waivers that are going to be necessary. I don't know how they're going to treat stormwater. I don't know how they're going to mitigate velocity of increased road length at steep slopes going directly into our drainage system. You can't have that section attenuated per the MS4 requirements that we have to work under. There's a restriction with the angle, the line of sight. Our view is just because it's already bad because somebody let it go, with steep before, adding to something that's steep and continuing it doesn't make it better for the town. You got to have something that and we talked emphatically at meetings that you need to address with abutters to get additional easements, to widen slopes, to give yourself the best opportunity to make this town road standard with the least amount of waivers possible. And that's going to be our stance with any concept that we have, even if you just extend it further with a cul-de-sac. There's still a constriction there because it's left basically on an incline currently where it ends. Now you're going to introduce 26 units, and that's going to impact that intersection at Blackberry Road for people coming out of Blackberry Road. There was no traffic before. Now you're going to have, I don't know how many trips, maybe an additional 100 trips a day, 150 trips a day. You can't make this worse,
Yeah, okay, I hear you. Mr. O'Connor?
I do have a couple of questions, and one from Mr. LaRue. If we can go back to the print, it was just up there. I don't know who's controlling the prints.
We can't hear you, John.
Yeah, you got to use the mic, John.
Oh, I'm sorry. My first concern is that recently we've had other parcels of property we've looked at. And I'm not indifferent to either a T-bone, same thing, as a cul-de-sac. I don't weigh portionally with me. Either one's fine with me. My concern with this one here is that we've required other parcels to have, per fire department, 2 exits. I don't see an exit other than we're stuck with the one way over, this is the United States Postal Service. So is the fire department trapped in there? Did they not come up during TRC in discussion how I can bring in another vehicle? Because that would be a concern to me. Again, we're still talking design concepts. Also, I spend a lot of time driving around there, and fortunately, it's not snow or ice, because boy, that place is unbelievable, because not only is this place going to have a possibility of what I think is 8%, I'm not sure what the 8%, what slope percentage is out there, but that whole place is nothing but percent slopes. So I know it's a part of area that later on, if we get into site plan, we'll discuss septic and ledges and so forth, but those are 2 of the key concerns I have about this particular area in the fire department. And I don't know whether you have a response for that or...
I guess I'll say, a part of our analysis for the existing portion of Strawberry Hill Road, it contains slopes up to 10%. Again, none of the road complies with the current road standards.
it's Class 6, so...
But, that's really, our hardship that we're combating against when we're trying to design a road that best complies with town standards with, as market indicated. We don't want to submit waivers. We'd prefer not a waiverless design, but this is what we've come up with that minimizes the waiver requests. It's still a safe design. It reduces impacts. I could read through the waiver requests, but that's really what we're coming from there.
Yeah, I think, as I said at the outset, we want to give you some guidance at a conceptual level that might help you minimize waivers. Until we actually have noticed a public hearing for a design review, we can't really get into detailed engineering analysis and detailed consideration of the waivers, because we would be out of scope. So we're trying to thread that fine line here. You're welcome, by the way, to come back and request a design review hearing, and then we can really get into all of these issues. It's just that we have to notice the abutters.
Okay.
The high level that Mark was talking about, I think, is good to talk about on the conceptual level of Derry's master plan from 2020 with the need for senior housing and the seniors that want to stay in the community that are living in these 2,400 to 3,000 square foot homes that they're unable to maintain the stairs. So my purpose is the overall look to help the community of the need for senior housing. The perfect lots are very limited. The flat lot with easy access in all of Rockingham County and Hillsborough County are very limited. And going forward, a lot of towns are doing variances to roadways. We're doing a neighborhood in Nottingham that my friend is putting the road in, and they're at 10% grades. Their road standards are 8%, but there's a section of the road that has to go in at 10%. Most other towns that I'm aware of are at 8%. And not that it matters for Derry, but my end goal is senior housing, building that for the town, and it's part of the master plan for Derry. We're trying to get there.
Understood, and meeting, legitimate housing demands is a very laudable goal. Although if it is intended for senior housing, that would tend to mitigate against excessively steep slopes that might make it hard for folks to go out and take a walk in the winter because it's treacherous.
It's relatively flat at the top of the hill.
10%?
Not at the top of the hill.
Okay.
For
Yeah, once we get into the site, everything's, relatively flat.
Yeah.
Which is, it is what it is. The road design coming up is creating a lot of cut just because we're needing to follow a lesser grade. And so, it's creating some circumstances that in itself, which we're trying to handle on site, such as, large cuts and placing the fill on site so there's no off-site trucking and, trying to take all these things into consideration and, come up with the safest and, in the middle design that we feel. 6%, I understand, that's like major highways grades. We're talking about a local street, so I feel that there should be some degree of flexibility as it's within the, the design standards that us engineers use. Same thing with the side slopes. 3-to-1 side slopes and fill is considered safe from AASHTO design guides, which, I know the town requires 4-to-1, but from a federal, standard perspective, it's allowable. So I guess that's more, the aspect as an engineer that I'm coming from.
So maybe what I'll do is actually poll the board, put everyone on the spot, and indicate whether anyone has a preference for the Aiden Avenue, both sides of the access road concept, or the extension of Poor Farm Road with all of the units on one side. And maybe we can at least give you that level of feedback. That doesn't mean that we've solved all your technical waiver problems, because the engineering department has standards and they like to see them met. Yes, the planning board has authority to grant waivers, but we try to do so respectfully and when there's substantial justice being done and we're not creating problems, if you understand where I'm going. Okay. So I'm going to ask
Just one more question, Mr. Chair, if you would. That's why I'm moving back, so you can't slug me out. This was actually directed to Mr. LaRue for a flatlander. Can you explain a little bit, not great technical ability, but on side slopes? What do you mean by the side slopes and the criteria that Derry has for side slopes?
Side slopes are basically from the edge of the curb back into the existing topography. And the additional challenge of this is that sometimes, and you saw it in the picture, is that there's not a heavy degree of accuracy to the topography that's there. They use LiDAR sometimes, or existing planimetric or photometric topography. And when you get in these thick areas, and this has been my experience and frustration in a lot of developments, they say that they can get 2 to 1, 2.5 to 1 slopes. Well, when you actually see the existing topography, it ends up being 1 to 1, maybe 2 to 1, because they didn't really do a detailed, extensive survey. And they know that I've been asking for more information on the sides of this road to vet that out with certainty, and not to say, oh, well, we're here now, and now we're going to be stuck with this. That's, not something that's desirable. We like the 4 to 1 for maintenance. For trimming, we have a piece of equipment that has a blade on it that we can go down roads. If we have steep slopes one way or the other, that piece of equipment isn't usable. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is making sure you have a clear line of sight, which I think is going to be very critical in this horizontal curve from looking up from Blueberry or Blackberry Road, for instance. So I hesitate immensely about giving way to those slopes, because those are so malleable in the field. It usually works against us, quite frankly.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay, I will now solicit comments from everyone. Mr. Chase.
So I guess I have a question more than a comment. Is you had stated a regulation that of not accessing directly onto a public road?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's under the zoning for housing for older persons or if it's under the streets requirements and the land development control regulations, but it indicates that multifamily developments such as this are not allowed to have direct access to the public road from basically their driveways can't access the public road. There needs to be a separate internal access drive, which, I mean, it is what it is, but it would require a separate waiver for that.
Do you have any other general thoughts? Any preferences between the options?
Well, my preference would be the more compact, the Aden Avenue one. That fits more in line with the type of development that they're doing. But I know that piece of land, and I understand the challenges that they're at, and it's going to be tough. And I have to side with Mr. LaRue on grades and such, especially we're talking an elderly development. I mean, it's challenging enough for a 30-year-old. How challenging is it going to be for an 80-year-old to come out of there in the wintertime?
You looking at me?
No. I'm thinking of me. I mean, there's aspects of both that I like, and if you could combine the best points of each, it would be a really phenomenal development. But it's the only other possibility, I don't know if it is, would be to push the entire Aden Avenue development back enough to put a cul-de-sac at the end of.
And that's, part of our constraints. As you said, you've seen the site. There's a lot of slope and it drops pretty significantly towards the back. And that's what we're trying to avoid. By the time we get to where the road extension ends, we've already have so much material that we need to get rid of, which is why there's that large berm in the back and big yard in the rear behind the buildings is is to lose all the material that we're cutting coming up through Poor Farm Road. So, and then I guess relating to the grades adjacent to the buildings, all of the internal access drives have been designed at 2% or less. It's really just the road coming up to the property,
Yeah.
which so just want to clarify that.
And there are walking trails on the property as well that aren't super steep.
Yeah. Yeah, once you get up at the top, it's fairly flat. It's getting up to the top.
Yeah, so just behind like the Plan North back of units, right behind those is where the grade really drops
Yeah.
off. So that's kind of why we're holding them where they are and would like to.
I mean, another consideration is, unlike the overhead view that was on there earlier, the Google, where it shows Poor Farm Road heading north isn't Poor Farm Road, that's a driveway. Poor Farm Road goes straight and it comes out on Bowers Road.
Right.
So someday that, who knows, but that's what planning is about. Someday that road may be put through in further development. It may be a through street, and then,
And that's why we were going with the hammerhead. You know, that's more of a temporary turnaround versus a cul-de-sac. And we are also showing easements to allow for the road to be extended along the entirety of the frontage. The abutting parcel that easement ties into is a town lot. And then I believe it's one more lot until it's Bowers. So another end, you know, providing through road potential, especially where Strawberry Hill has, it sounds like, you know, emergency concerns. At least a through road could be constructed in the future if needed to help handle those things. But, you know, obviously there's many
So
options.
what is the status of the roadway right-of-way that Mr. Chase references that continues out to Bowers? Is that still a public
It's a Class 6 abandoned.
Class 6, subject to gates and bars? I mean, what is its legal status?
I believe there is a gate, isn't there?
there's two gates, there's one at each end.
Yeah, gates and bars doesn't mean physically,
Well, but
But
there is an actual gate
there's a legal
there,
term.
Yeah.
Discontinued, subject to gates and bars. It's still a public right-of-way, but
Right.
it basically means it's a Class 6.
I believe that's what it is.
Yes.
And just to point out on the Bowers side, that angle doesn't meet our standard as well. So you would have to have an easement on somebody's property to make that intersection work. And there's a tight curve right there, so line of sight is a little bit of a concern as well.
Yeah, colonial era road layout is a bit of a challenge, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
Mr. Chair, can I ask another question?
Well, I'm going to go down,
Oh, okay.
and when I get to you, you can ask and anything you want. So, Mr. Healy, feedback, please?
Yeah, I mostly agree with Mr. Chase on this. I think I like the Aiden Ave, the layout better. That seems more like, you know, what's the title of this? The older person's development than going down the street and they're all kind of individual. So if something could be done with that design, I think that's probably the better design. But I think it's kind of tough for us to make a decision, well, not make it, to pick now when we don't have all the feedback from all the departments. But just kind of looking at it generally, I like their original Aiden Ave over the cul-de-sac where this development's kind of separated.
Mr. O'Connor?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. On the print, if I remember.
So we're limited to talking about sheet 01, right?
Yep. The property surrounding the Poor Farm Road property, all three different properties up there listed as town-owned. Is there a possibility, and again, I'm favoring the T-bone concept myself personally, until I get some more information, that could you tap off of that to get to Bowers? Because all that property in the back is Town of Derry, and I'm not sure what the Town of Derry, until I just realized when I saw it come up here, listed as Town of Derry, Town of Derry, Town of Derry, what the Town of Derry is doing with that property, and if it's, whether it be an easement
Bless you.
or conservation.
It's part of the bike path, and also there's a lot of wetlands on it.
Oh, okay. I didn't pick up on that till just a little while ago, so, okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Mouser, do you have preferences?
At the end of the day, I just want what's gonna be the safest design, whether you're doing the Aiden Road or whether you're doing this cul-de-sac. And when I say the safety, I mean of the residents that are gonna be living here, the fire department trying to get in, the ambulances trying to get in. If you're asking me, I like everybody on one side.
Okay.
Instead of the Aiden Road.
Ms. Lavoy?
I think sort of aesthetically and functionally, I like the Aiden Avenue design better. However, I have concerns about the number of waivers that you're seeking and the, really valid concerns from the department heads. And if the cul-de-sac can mitigate some of those concerns, and that may be, the lesser of two evils, but, I really just think that we need more information on how we're gonna address the volume and let's call it the depth of some of these, the impact of some of these waivers are gonna be before we can really make a better informed decision.
Mr. Malby?
I'm going to echo Mr. Chase and Mr. Healy. I prefer, all things being equal, the Aiden Avenue design. Having had a quick peek at the grading and drainage plan, and you can see how steep it is. I know you gentlemen are up against something pretty tough, but I do share Mr. LaRue's concerns going forward.
Thank you. On a conceptual level, I prefer the Aiden Avenue design with buildings on either side of the road. But I would encourage you to try to figure out how to make the engineering work when you come back, either for a design review or a formal application. Try to minimize the number of waivers, especially those that impact safety, travel safety. Not all waivers are created equal, so I will give you conceptual feedback and withhold comment on a lot of the technical details until we get to that point. Okay. Do we have any closing questions or comments? Mr. Chase?
Yeah, I neglected to mention that 2 points is, number one, I strongly agree with Mr. LaRue on a straight dead end on Poor Farm Road. That's a maintenance nightmare. I would never support that at all. And number two, I know we can't get into it now, but something I would look at closely is the transition from Poor Farm Road onto Adams Ave. How that transitions, especially with larger vehicles, trying to make that corner, tailboard dragging and that sort of thing. Side tipping, I know with the grades you got there, that's gonna be a challenge trying to make that work with your side slopes and stuff. So my opinion is to make Aiden Ave work, you're gonna need a lot more engineering closer to what the town standards are.
Okay. So I think we've given you feedback within the scope of the announced conceptual consultation public hearing. And unless you have any other questions, I think we're done with this item.
I don't. Thank
Right,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is to schedule a comprehensive visioning session for the Gateway Zoning Committee.
Okay. As you're aware, we're getting ready to start planning the final visioning session for the Gateway, where we bring all the information from the first 3 sessions together and do a more formal charrette-like session. We were hoping to set a date for that, and a suggestion would be April 30th. It's a Wednesday, and it's not a week that we have a meeting, and there's five Wednesdays in the month of April, so it's kind of like a free Wednesday, if you will. So we were hoping that might be an acceptable date for the board, and we could, once we have the date, we can work on the planning for it.
Well, we would certainly invite any member of the board to attend. Is there anyone who has an explicit conflict on April 30th that you know of now?
I do.
Okay.
Town meeting in Andover.
Town meeting in Andover?
On the 30th.
Oh, April town meeting, that's cool. Anyone else?
Nothing was scheduled. Yeah, we're just wondering if there's a budget conflict.
I'd have to look at the schedule.
Okay.
I'm trying to through my head.
Yeah,
Remember the dates.
the room was free. This room was
Then we
free, so,
probably don't.
okay, yeah.
All right, if we don't hear any other objections, we're never going to get everyone. That sounds fine to me. So without
Wonderful,
objection,
right.
go ahead and
Okay,
schedule
all
that.
right, so we'll start advertising for that. The next Gateway Committee meeting will be Monday at noon. And an agenda, the agenda will go out and the link for that meeting will be made available. We meet in person or via Zoom or Teams.
Okay.
We believe that, we haven't set a firm start date, but I think we would like to start a little earlier, such as 6:30 for that, so that we're allowing enough time for good public participation without keeping people out till midnight.
All right, next thing is planning director and chairman updates.
Okay. So along with, to continue talking about visioning items, the planning department has contracted with Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission to provide assistance for the visioning sessions. They are going to help us with working on goal statements, identifying the key priorities, theme identification from the three public meetings that we had. They're going to help prepare the vision session and the outreach to the public. And then once we have the actual visioning session, they will help planning staff in the Gateway Committee to summarize the feedback from that final session and prepare a report to the board. So we've already started working with them, and we have a rough outline of how we think the April 30th session might go. So we'll be discussing that pretty in depth on Monday. I wanted to remind the board to let you know that on May 22nd at 6:30 p.m., New Hampshire MA will be providing training for the Planning and Zoning Board. It'll be here in this room. It's going to be, they're going to cover ZBA decision-making process and land use regulations, planning roles. So that's free training that's being provided to us by New Hampshire MA as part of our membership. And I think for some of our newer members, it's a really good opportunity to kind of get a good outsider's view, because we kind of throw you into it here, how the whole process works. And also to see how ZBA decisions, how they all kind of play into each other. I wanted to just touch base quickly, because even though it's March, we're going to be hitting summer schedules soon. Usually the board has one meeting in July and one meeting in August. And I didn't know if there was a preference on the board's side as to which meeting we did. My thought was maybe have the July 2nd meeting, and then have that, so have the first Wednesday in July, and then that third Wednesday in August, which would kind of provide a nice little break in there if you wanted to do that.
Does anyone object to meeting on the 2nd if you have fourth plans that involve travel? Hearing none, that sounds fine.
Okay, all right. And then moving forward, like when we get closer to it, I know that I myself will not be available for the November 5th meeting, but that's way away, so we can work on that afterwards. The only other thing I had was we had, Caroline and I had kind of created a bill tracker. It was our own spreadsheet that we created based on the discussion that we had all had. That has been updated this afternoon with the latest updates to the bills that we had discussed and kind of prioritized on the planning board side. So there are a lot of votes that are going to happen tomorrow in the House and the Senate on particularly housing and parking. So We'll keep updating that, and that's a live document in your planning board resource folder.
Thank you. I will indicate that, according to my best calculations, we will have 2 full member vacancies coming up after March 31st, when terms expire. And according to the town charter, folks who are in the alternate seats at that time, when the council makes the decision, have first priority to apply for those, if they choose to. And we still have 1 vacant alternate seat, and all in all, we probably have a whole bunch of seats, because we, need to backfill alternates. So, again, I'll make my personal appeal to people who would like to help the town of Derry and come help us out and have some fun and discuss the interesting things we discuss. I think that's it. Anyone else have something? Because we do have board member comments, so we go into that next.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. First of all, I want to segue into what Liz had indicated when she said that we were using Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission in part of the program coming up. I also wanted to note to everybody out there that there are 4 members allowed from Derry to be on that organization. And there's already 3 of us. We need 1 more member to be on there. It's an area where you get to review funding for all highways, bridges, walkways, railways, et cetera. Very, very interesting. It's once a month. So it works out pretty good for the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission. And also in touch with that, there is the tracker that Liz just mentioned, is that there was a bill that up in the State House just recently that would probably try to eliminate what we are all doing here tonight. That would eliminate that. That got squashed, fortunately. So HB 471 went to the ITL table, thank goodness. And that was very interesting. So that's it. Thank
So
you,
with
Mr. Chair.
respect to the open position on the Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission, would someone apply for that using the volunteer form on the town's website, just like
Correct.
any other position?
Correct.
Okay, so that's another opportunity that's available.
Mm-hmm.
Any other board member comments? Hearing none, I'll fish for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by O'Connor, seconded by Maloney to be adjourned. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
It's the only thing he let me say.